Hi, welcome back to the channel. Michelle, and today I'm going to talk to you and show you how I use Core Knowledge Science in my homeschool. I've been using Core Knowledge Science for the last 4 years in my homeschooling, and I've done science we dabbled in kindergarten all the way up to 5th grade. I have not tried the middle school 6th through 8th units yet, but I do have some experience with the elementary units. And I think although they are written for a public or private school setting, they are completely adaptable to a homeschool setting. So I'm going to walk you through and show you kind of how I adapt it for homeschool use. So first, when using Core Knowledge completely free online, you can choose to purchase sets. They do have a bookstore available online. You can purchase physical sets if that's what you want to do. Early on, I did purchase physical sets. This is from a previous unit we did when we were first doing it. I bought the student reader. They also have ebooks you can use, and I will show you that when I get on my computer. You can print it all out. I've done that where I've printed student readers before or teacher guides, and I've gone through that. I even have videos on my channel kind of walking through how I've done it in the past. So at this point, after we're on our year 4 of using it, I've gotten to the point where I just put the teacher guides on my Samsung tablet. All my Core Knowledge teacher guides are on here. I use Core Knowledge for Language Arts for 2 of my kids as well, and we are doing Core Knowledge US History. So all the teacher guides are on there, and then I put the student readers either on my kids' Amazon Fire tablet or on my Big Mac desktop. So for things like science, it's on my Mac desktop because we use it as a group subject, so all my kids can see it, and then they take turns reading the reader out loud as well. And the only thing I print is the activity pages or experiment pages, the documentation things that go with it. So this is the schedule, the recommended schedule that Core Knowledge gives you. I'm going to show you this online, so don't worry about not being able to see it. But in the past, I've made my own schedule based on kind of the outline they give you. Again, past videos show how I do that. 4 years in, I've gotten to the point where this year I'm just following the predetermined schedule. It makes everything easier, and I have found no issues doing it this way. We do science Thursdays and Fridays, so 2 days a week, and we have no issues getting through everything. So I'm going to take you through and show you on my computer kind of what I use with the Core Knowledge Science units, what some of the great benefits I think there is available, because I know it can be overwhelming when you first look at it and there's a lot of components. But once you have an understanding and you do a unit or two, it's really, really easy to use. And I think it's provided a great science education for my kids. And because we've used it every year, I have seen kind of that knowledge build upon itself every year. So I'm going to take you over to my computer and show you how I do this. This is the Core Knowledge Science, and this is just a brief overview. And I wanted to point out a couple of things here. First of all, if you're ever looking for the online resources, they can also be found here. They are within each unit as well, but if you're ever looking for specific online resources, you can check that. One thing I wanted to point out that I really appreciate that Core Knowledge does is they continually add resources. So in the past year or so, they've added computer science, which we've started implementing this summer. We used it, and I think we did kindergarten, or we did 1st grade, 2nd grade, and 3rd grade. Because again, I love that Core Knowledge actually has it at grade level, which is appropriate for the child to be learning, and it's written to that grade level, which I think is really helpful. But they have computer science units in every single one of them, every single grade, and they recently added science literacy, which I think is really cool. And I'm going to take you through and kind of show you some of the benefits I found in this, and I hope to implement it as well. But that's just a brief overview of some of the things they offer. So I'm going to go to download the curriculum. That takes me to this page, so you can see here, just pick science, and whatever grade you want to do. I'm going to show you grade 5 because that's what we're using this year. And it will give you all the units. So we are currently still doing investigating matter, but these will be all the units we cover. And like I said before, this is the science literacy unit. Each grade level will have one, and it'll work very similar to the other units where there's a student reader or teacher guide online resource. I will do a brief overview of that once I get through kind of the unit we're looking at. I also did want to mention that Core Knowledge does offer ebooks as well for subscription. And you can find this on their website as well. But you just goes to the purchase button. Library. And these are more interactive ebooks. So I can filter subject, science, all science. You can also filter it by grade level as well. If I want to just show you 5th grade. So these are the 5th grade student readers. I'm going to show you the preview, and it's exactly like the printed ones or the ones online. The only difference is that these are interactive. So they can read to the student. Sometimes there are clickable links as well. But I did want to show you that's an option. So let's go back to this. If you click on the unit, it's going to take you to an overview of that unit, and then you have your student reader, your teacher guide, and your online resources. So again, you can access the online resources specifically for that unit right here as well, or from the main page. So let's go to the teacher guide. So this is the teacher guide, again, very similar to how the formatted teacher guides are for language arts and history. It's going to give you table of contents here, an introduction, a big idea of what you're going to be learning and teaching about. Again, a lot of the introduction in Core Knowledge teacher guides is, alignments, things like that. What students would have covered if they had used Core Knowledge in the past, which, again, we have, so we've covered all that. How to use the student reader, pacing guides, breaks down the core lessons. I do like that they present it in a big question format, because I think science is really about asking questions and investigating. It'll break down all the activity pages you will go through. Again, these are the only things I choose to print now. And you can find those at the end of this guide. Shows you about online resources. This is a materials and supply list. And you can see a lot of these things are basic stuff you've had at home. We're, I think, on lesson 9. And the only thing I've had to buy so far is a small kitchen scale to weigh things, and some steel wool for an experiment. Again, you could choose not to do that. Usually during the lessons, there's multiple demonstrations or what you consider experiments, and you can choose just not to do the ones you don't have the supplies for, because there's I think the first one we did, there was 7 or 8 different demonstrations. You can choose, if you don't have that on hand, to not do that specific one. And there are usually video links in the online resources that show you some form of demonstration as well. But you can see magnet, aluminum foil, a lot of things you're going to have on hand. And in the 4 years I've used it, besides the 2 things I already mentioned, prior to this, the only thing I ever had to buy was magnetic tape. So it's nothing crazy. You're not having to get a special supply box, although if you are curious, I have noticed that throughout a couple times of the year, Core Knowledge does release grade level science kit boxes that go with a specific grade level. So keep your eyes out for that. I suggest subscribing to their newsletter, their emails. You'll get emails about it. I've never had to buy the science kits because, again, everything's on hand. This is the sample pacing guide. And like I've said in the past, I've made my own. So they do give you a blank one. So I would go through and kind of figure out how I divide the lessons up. This year, I'm just going by how this is divided up. So we do 2 days, because we do Thursday and Friday. And that has worked fine, because you'll see there's a lot of lessons where it's day 1, day 2, so it works out nicely. And again, it gives you your key here, teacher guide. You're going to be doing lesson 1, your activity page, 1.1, and it will tell you when you're using these, but this is a general overview. So I just cross out when we've completed that, but it does give me a quick, if I'm looking at something, okay, this is what we'll be doing. And one thing I usually do is go through and I will highlight the things I don't have on hand, and then I will read that specific demonstration and see if I need that or if I can substitute something or do a different demonstration, and I will write that material that I need above the date, just so I know I have it on hand. So it's going to give you an overview of what you're going to be starting with. Lesson 1, Introduction to Matter. You're going to have vocabulary. It's going to tell you what activity page you're going to need, any materials, because there are some things where you're having the demonstrations set up for the kids to do it when they get into class, which I think is really reminiscent of what you would see in a classroom setting, that you're actually conducting demonstrations or experiments with the kids, and it'll tell you different stations. So some things do have to be set up ahead of time, but nothing that's been complicated. I've always been able to do it in like 5 minutes while my kids are transitioning to the next thing. I can easily have these stations put together. And you can see they're not super complicated. It's water and different types of cups in here, foil, and it does give you, Know the Science explains each of the science behind those specific demonstrations, which I really like. So you're getting to your activity page, and again, a lot of this, especially at this level, is experimenting, observations, kind of getting that scientific thinking down, which I've really liked. And that just goes through and kind of supports them through the demonstration. And then you'll get to day 2. And again, it's usually finishing that demonstration or taking the observations from day 1 and writing about that. But I want to show you lesson 7, because that's what we just finished. So for lesson 7 was how matter changes. Your big question, does the amount of matter change during a physical change? So prior to this, we talked about the 3 forms of matter, solid, liquid, gas. We've gone through all that. We've done demonstrations. Now we're looking at, does the amount of matter change during those physical change? And then lesson 8 was, does it change during a chemical change? So for this one, we read the student reader. So again, this is our student reader. I usually just have this on the desktop, and it's not overly complicated. I think it's informational. I think it's perfect for this age. My 7-year-old does join us join my 11-year-old for science this year, and she's never had an issue being able to adapt to it. I think some of it probably is a bit over her head, but that doesn't mean she can't be exposed to it. So this is our reader here, and you can see it takes you through and kind of gives you some questions to ask to kind of get them to think further. It gives you the big question, your vocabulary. Well, I thought it would fit really well in explaining things for the kids, and especially since the experiment or demonstration we did was taking water and turning it into a solid and then turning it to a liquid and measuring back and forth, hence why I needed the kitchen scale to be able to do that. But I think it explained physical change really well and how matter is impacted by that. So one of the days we go through the chapter, ask the questions, and then we'll do the demonstration, which would be 7.1. But that would be 2 days I broke into there, and then next lesson would be 8. And this is looking at how combining matter forms a new substance. So you can see there were different demonstrations we did for this. So one of them was, I believe it says in here, yep, demonstration was lighting a candle with a match, and you see how it says, know the science 1 here? This explains the science behind it, the chemical change of light and heat. Demonstration 2 was a glow stick, again, chemical change of light. Demonstration 3 was making slime, which my kids really liked. I'll put up a picture for you. I'm not a big fan of slime, but there's a lot of science behind slime, so they enjoyed that one. The 4th one was looking at bleach and food coloring. And the 5th one was vegetable oil, water, and Alka-Seltzer tablets, so adding carbon dioxide to it to see what would happen. My kids really liked that. I took a video of that. I'll link it for you to see. but when you drop the Alka-Seltzer tablet, it kind of makes almost like a lava lamp type object because it reacts in the water and it pushes the water into the vegetable oil, and you can see how matter is changed during that and what happens when the Alka-Seltzer tablet's completely done. So again, really hands-on stuff, really easy things you've had, really easy materials you have in your house, but you're gaining a lot of knowledge. And again, every single one talks about this. So the acid tablets, chemical changes of gases, the bleach was chemical changes of color, but that is 2 days for you. So we would do lesson 7, and then we would do lesson 8. And you can see we only read 1 chapter for both those lessons because we're talking about that specific unit. And then we would go into chemical change. And then the online resources is one of the things you can download as well. And most of the time I use these for videos. They'll directly link you to different types of demonstrations or videos the kids can watch. So for example, this was a PBS one on buoyancy. We looked at boiling ocean water because that related to what we were learning about. This one was really cool, convection in water. This kind of helped my kids understand how matter spreads itself out. So the online resources is helpful. When we go back to the teacher guide, you would just go on to the next thing. So you can divide the lessons up how you want them. You can do a lesson one day, you can do science once a week. It's really open to your interpretation. We do usually, if the demonstrations are longer, we'll break one lesson into that 2-day span, but usually we do 2 lessons a week. But same setup. It's going to tell you to collect or prepare these items to have on hand. It's going to tell you what printout you're going to need, what activity page, online resources, so it's going to give you a demonstration. And it's going to just walk you through using that activity page as the teacher. And then you can see here we're going into a chapter. It tells you the page number. It's going to prompt some questions for the kids. You're going to have vocabulary. In the past, I have had my girls do index cards, vocabulary work. I don't have them do it at this stage anymore. Like all core knowledge units, it will have assessment opportunities as well. I'm going to take you to the teacher resources. So it'll give you everything you need here. These are, again, it'll tell you when to use it. Activity 1.1, use with lesson 1. And again, they're doing that science. They're writing the observations down. What scientific questions will you ask about these states of matter? It's getting them to really think about the science behind it because they're ready for that, especially at, I think, a 5th grade level, to dive deeper into investigating science and doing experiments. So you can see here we had a baking soda, we had salt, we had sugar. Those were our mystery powders. We had different demonstrations on how they react with certain liquids, such as water and vinegar and things like that. Identifying matter. Okay, so they do have lesson checks as well, kind of reviews to kind of see if they are retaining the information. But again, a lot of the demonstrations, I think, do help them solidify the information because they're getting physical interaction with the material, not just reading from a book and filling out a worksheet type situation. But like all core knowledge units, they do have review units and tests. So this is the review game. You could kind of like Jeopardy style set it up. I've done that in the past. This is a unit review, so they do a crossword puzzle, fill in the blank, and then this would be the test that they would take. And usually I will have my kids, if it's not something they have to like draw a diagram of something of, we'll do it orally, or they'll draw it on a whiteboard or something like that. I don't tend to hand them to it to fill out because I have 7, 11-year-old. There's very different levels, but as long as I know they're understanding it at this point, but it does have the option of unit assessments. I do use them, and of course it comes with your answer key because that's essential to know because you don't know all the answers as well. And it does have the assessment answers as well. But my kids have always done the assessments at the end of science units, have done really well with them, so I know they're retaining the information. And the nice thing about core knowledge is it is building upon itself each year. So they're really retaining that information because they're revisiting it every year and going deeper. So it does end with a glossary as well. So that's the teacher guide. That is the student reader, how they use them. The online resources. The other thing I wanted to show you was, so I talked about how they had computer literacy units in the levels. I want to talk about the science literacy units, which I think is really great, and I'm excited to implement these this year as well. So same thing, you're going to get a teacher guide, you're going to get a student reader, you're going to get online resources. So let's go to the online resources. So again, you'll see a lot of the online resources are YouTube videos, which is helpful to get the information across, but they also have the CK Digital Engagements websites, which I think is a really fun idea. So you can see here, so if I'm doing grade 5, science literacy, there we go. These are the options. Obviously, you're going to have more options with the younger kids than the older kids. But quiz game, mystery story, and then an engagement celebration activity. So let's look at the quiz game, the mystery story, and the celebration. So this is a quiz game, just like how you would think it would be, that they're answering questions online, but it's in an interactive format, which I think is more engaging, and it does give you an overview as well as on the bottom of the page too, how to facilitate it. But they're just given questions about the unit, and it will give them rules and stuff how to play. But it's a nice review option for the unit. So you choose a hoop.
A team of engineers is working on the design for a satellite. The engineers design a built-in second version of the GPS navigation system to use in case the first GPS system fails. What is this an example of?
And they'll have time to answer the question, and if they get it right, then they will get those points in the hoop. So you can see how that works. This one is the celebration. So this is when you would finish, and it tells you when to use it, when you finish the unit. So they'll have a fun puzzle activity, and then the next will be a short video to kind of summarize what they've learned about something interesting. The mystery story, I think, was fun as well. So again, it's a way to review the information they've been learning about. So this one is a mystery story, and it tells you the information there, how to participate. So you're given this story of kids setting up a science experiment or for a science fair, and they're missing a piece. So you're trying to figure out what happened to the missing piece, and you're given clues. So these are your suspects, so kind of like a murder mystery game. And then each of these is, you have to answer all 8 of these questions to get your first clue about the mysterious disappearance of the pin. So you can look at your first one. It'll give you something similar to what you read about. It'll give you the answer. And then once you answer all 8 of these questions, you're given a clue card, and it continues on until the story is solved. But I thought this was a really cool way to engage kids in science, to get them thinking, not just about, vocabulary and the textbook, but applying that. Science literacy is really important. So I think this is a really cool option. Core Knowledge is added in as well if you're unfamiliar with it. So that is how I use core knowledge science units in my homeschool. And like I said, once you get used to doing a couple lessons, it's really easy, and it's all formatted, very similar to each other. So once you understand how to navigate it, it goes really quickly, and we've been using it for the last few years. And my kids, I think, have done really well with it. They've retained a lot of the information. It's completely free online, which is beneficial to you, but it's full of a lot of great resources. And like I said, they continue to add more. They've added computer science in the last couple of years. This past year, they added science literacy. So they're always updating and adding to it, which is really great. So if you have any specific questions about core knowledge or science or anything I talked about here, let me know. Like I said, I'm no expert, but I've been using it for quite a few years now, so I'm pretty good at navigating. I don't know much about the middle school units or at least in science, because I haven't done those with my kids yet. One thing I did want to mention is, although it is leveled by grade, that does not mean you have to stick to grade level. For example, we did a human body study, and I pulled all the human body units, because there's one for each grade level, from K to 5th grade, and we just covered an entire human body unit doing that way. So you can definitely pick and choose what you want. I've done that in the past, but I've also done at grade level as well. So it's very open to interpretation, and it's an awesome homeschooling resource. So like I said, if you have any questions, let me know. If not, thank you for watching.